heard nothing from Blake Payne, so we'll note he's not here. Okay, minutes, pages 3 to 10. I move the minutes of the meeting held on 26th of April, taken as read, confirmed and signed. Deborah?
I'll second that.
All agreed? Thank you. Urgent items, none. Declarations of interest, none. Item 4, provisional revenue and capital outturn 21-22, pages 11 to 56. We've got Declan with us. He's going to run through it. Over to you, Declan.
Thank you, Leader. So as you say, the report sets out the provisional revenue and capital outturn for 2021-22. The summary of the revenue outturn set out in the table on paragraph 6 and shows a gross underspend of 7.9 million. The main driver of the underspend was 8 million from the council tax and business rate income, which held up remarkably well despite the pandemic and the unwinding of the related support schemes that were put in place. In terms of services, there was a £2 million overspend in totality, despite Environment and Transport and Children's Family Service both delivering underspends of £4 million. The high needs service continues to be difficult financially, with the grant overspent by £11 million, which is £6 million more than was expected when the budget was set. Adult social care had another pandemic impacted year, and despite £13 million of NHS income to help with the additional costs, the service still overspent by £2 million. When we set the NTFS in February, we did know that it was going to be a challenging plan, and there was a gap in 2025-26 of £40 million, despite identifying savings of £54 million. The revenue budget is now under even more pressure as inflation takes hold. Based upon the latest economic forecasts, particularly for the national living wage, the financial gap could realistically be £30 million higher, rising to financial gap could realistically be £30 million, rising to over £70 million by 2025-26. The report provides more detail on the issue. It is in the context of an increasingly challenging position that the recommended use of the £7.9 million underspend have been made. It's proposed that £3.6 million is set aside in the budget equalisation reserve for risks faced by the council. This is with the early years expenditure in excess of the grant in mind, which is still being investigated. We have 1.1 million proposed to be contributed to the Transformation Earmarked Fund to support delivery of efficiencies, and a further 3.2 million of additional funding for the increased risk of inflation. The report also covers the capital outturn, which was a £36.4 million underspend on an £119 million programme. Virtually all this variance is slippage of schemes that will be incurred in the current financial year. This does have a bit of a feeling with the capital programme of calm before the storm. In a similar way to revenue, there is a significant financial pressure on the programme. Inflation on infrastructure projects has risen significantly, reflecting the global situation. And the cost pressures are being exacerbated by the demands for capital schemes that are being driven by the requirements of local plans. With this in mind, a recommendation has been added to the order paper to reflect these concerns. To manage the affordability of the capital programme, infrastructure development will be closely linked with the funding available. Whilst we will always be mindful of our statutory duties to provide school places and ensure that highway safety is not compromised, there could be adverse impact on development if sufficient developer funding is not secured when planning permissions are granted. The report also includes two further recommendations in paragraph 2, namely that the outturn and prudential indicators are noted. Thank you, Leader.
Lee.
Thank you, Chairman. I will start with a positive observation and fact, which is to acknowledge the good financial outcome for the year, with all of our services having had to adapt through the changing impact of COVID. It is clear that we are in a very difficult financial position as the lead authority, with the adult social care reforms as an example of the significant further financial challenge that the County Council will need to deal with over the medium term. Indeed, all of our departments face challenges going forward. The recommendations reflect the infrastructure challenge that we face. With Melton and the A511 schemes committed to, it is vital that our planning authorities ensure developments are viable and that this must include the right level of infrastructure. We want them to work with us. As the Leader has said many times, we do not want to create boxes on the end of spine roads. This is not acceptable development for our county. The host of local plans coming through over the next few years need to ensure that infrastructure can be delivered as part of all those schemes. Declan outlined the use of last year's underspend, which I believe is prudent and sensible. Finally, we now need to deliver a fairer funding deal, which allows all of our services to be delivered and allow Leicestershire to grow. I do call on all our MPs for their support Only yesterday, the leader and the deputy leader wrote again to the MPs outlining the issues that we face with bus services, special educational needs, major infrastructure projects, highways maintenance and adult social care. I think what we need to do is assure residents of Leicestershire that we are doing all that we can. And with that, Chairman, I'd like to move the recommendations on the order paper.
Thank you, and I'll second them. Any other comments from anyone? No. All in favour? Moved by Lee, seconded by me. Thank you very much. Thank you. 5, Leicestershire and Rutland Carers Strategy 22-25, pages 57 to 140. We've got Heather Pick with us, Assistant Director of Adults and Communities. She'll introduce the report. Jane Moore, Director of Children and Family Services, and Mike Sands, Director of Public Health, will also be here to answer any questions. After that, I'll go straight to Christine, who has responsibility. So over to you, Heather.
Thank you. So the Leicestershire, Leicester and Rutland Carers Strategy is a refresh of the 2018 to 21 strategy. You'll note from the papers there's been a lot of engagement with people and carers about the new strategy, and in the main the key priorities remain the same. There were some suggestions, including one that the strategy was too long and needed to be more understandable, which we'll take on board. But the feedback was consistent with the current action plan and priorities that were carried over from the 2018 strategy. The plan is to launch the consultation on the draft strategy and associated LCC actions during Carers Week, which is the 6th of June, with carers and wider stakeholders having the opportunity to feed in their views across a range of mediums, consultation questions, email, plus a face-to-face event focusing on the consultation. The draft strategy is also going to scrutiny on the 6th of June for input and views. And the Department of Health and Social Care and the Adult Social Care Reform Programme has recognised unpaid carers as a key area for local authorities to support. And I think it's fair to say that without the support of our unpaid carers, our budget would be much more bigger than we are now. We do have a commitment to carers, both through this strategy and the level of investment across the council, both adults and children's, and including public health. And we've included commissioned carers support services, which is due to be tendered for a long-term contract in June also. The proposal is that we have a 6-week consultation, as we've already said, to start on the 6th of June, and the outcomes to go to the adult and communities overview and scrutiny and cabinet meetings in the autumn 2022. And we have recommendations at paragraph 4 of the report.
Great, Christine.
Thank you, Leader. The department are fully aware of the importance of carers and the job they do. Carers can be elderly but also much younger, and the department recognises their value and supports them by keeping them informed and guide them into getting the right support. Remind carers that they have a life away from being a carer, which I think is very important for their own health. We also ensure that the carers are kept informed of any technology solutions that can support them in their caring role. The consultation begins on the 6th of June and at the start of the Carers Week for 6 weeks. So I do hope people go into that and look at it and comment. So yes, I'm pleased with what we're doing. Thank you very much.
Are you moving the recommendations, Christine? Thank you. Louise?
Yes, I'm happy to second, and I think carers do a really important role in the society, not just looking after their own family or friends, but they actually do a big role for us. So thank you. I'm happy to second.
Great. Deborah?
Thank you. I just wanted to pick up on one of the priorities about supporting young carers. I know it was just a little bit disappointed that only one young person actually responded to the engagement. So a lot of our young carers are quite hidden and don't see themselves as carers. They just see them as supporting mum and dad or nan and granddad. So I think it's really key that we encourage young carers to engage and also to respond to this consultation. I've already raised it with my director, Jane Moore, to ensure that we do all we can within the department to raise the awareness of young carers and make sure that they are engaged with this process.
Very good. Right, moved by Christine, seconded by Louise. All in favour? Thank you, Heather. 6 is an exception to contract procedure rules, which the Chief has done in relation to minor adaptations. If you want to read about it, it's on 141 to 144. Heather.
Thank you. Minor adaptations have been completed for older people with disabilities for many years. We have a long-standing contract. We have 4 local providers. We have outstanding recommendations from them, no concerns around performance or quality. We've just been caught up in time really with the procurement, and the exception is to allow us to procure once again properly for a further period, and to allow us to establish whether there are any other local providers who would wish to come into the contract. But we have no concerns about the current provision that is being provided.
Very good. Thank you, Heather. Christine.
Thank you, Leader. As was stated, we have a duty to provide adaptations to the maximum for independence. I fully support the actions that we've taken. So
You're moving the recommendations. That's good. Thank you. Louise.
Happy to support. Thanks.
No other speakers. Moved by Christine, seconded by Louise. All in favour? Thank you very much. 4 exceptions to contract procedures to provide holiday activities and food places during the school summer holidays. 145 to 150 if you want to read it. Jane.
Thank you, Leader. So I'm here today to seek approval for this exception to contract procedure rules for the direct award of contracts for our holiday activity funds. Back in 2018, the DfE invested a number of pilot holiday activity funds in recognition of the need to support children over the school holidays, which provides significant pressure points. Leicestershire was involved in the delivery of one of these pilots back in 2018. In 2021, the money was rolled out across all upper tier local authorities, and 220 million has been made available through those through grants directly to local authorities. That's now to deliver programmes across Easter, summer and Christmas holidays. Leicestershire County Council has been awarded 1.5 million to coordinate these schemes, and you can see in paragraph 18 that we've already set about delivering those schemes and have delivered to over 3,300 children so far. Back in December last year, the government did confirm continuation of that grant across the next 3 years from 22 to 25. And now that the County Council has secured longer term funding, we need the advice is that we need to put in place a procurement solution which is compliant with the Council's contract procedure rules in order to be able to give those contracts out to suppliers to deliver those programmes. So back in March 22, an exception to the contract procedure rules was approved by to directly award contracts to suppliers during the Easter holidays. And in May, suppliers were invited to express an interest to provide the holiday activity clubs across the school summer holidays this year. So subject to Cabinet's approval to directly award contracts for the summer holiday places, the expressions of interest will be reviewed by a panel and decisions made around allocations of those monies. In order for the department to continue to offer those direct awards to suitable suppliers, whilst allowing time to carry out a compliant procurement process to award future contracts, an exception is requested for summer 2022, and this procurement exercise will support the effective delivery of that DfE programme that I've already outlined. So just to move to the recommendations, it is recommended that the exception to contract procedure rules is agreed, and it allows us then to, as explained, move to the award for this year and then move on to ensuring that we work towards a procurement exercise to award the contracts for the remainder of the HAF programme. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Deborah knows all about this. Deborah?
Yeah, no, this is a really, really important scheme that we fully support, and we want to make it as easy as possible for all our schools and sort of community groups and local groups within communities to be able to deliver these schemes. So, yeah, we're fully in support of this and move the motion.
Oh, Louise?
Yes, really important service, so happy to second.
Thank you. Jane, is it true? I'm advised that we've already spent 7.2 million supporting families in Leicestershire throughout this last year.
Yes, Leader. So we've been able to provide funding through a number of different grants that are coming in to support numerous families, one of which is the Holiday Activity Fund, but also the grants that we've paid out to families to provide school food vouchers during holidays, as well as some other initiatives that we've done. So in total, it's over 7.2 million. Yeah.
Sounds like we've done very well with that then. For saying we've got no damn money, at least we're spending what we've got wisely. Okay, moved by Deborah, seconded by Louise. Thank you, Jane. 8, direct award for the provision of hostel-based services and outreach housing related support, 151 to 154. Mike Sands, Director of Public Health, is going to introduce this, and then I'm going straight to Louise. Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. So the story behind this is set out in Part B of the Cabinet paper. Back in 2020, we awarded a contract to supply hostel and outreach-based support for homeless adults for a 2-year period with an option to extend for a further 2 years. That contract was awarded to the Bridge, who in turn subcontracted elements of the provision to Falcon Support Services and Nottingham Community Housing Association, henceforth known as NCHA. Whilst the department was content to extend the contract for the further 2 years, 2022 to 2024, the lead provider, as we got close to the kind of first 2 years, rejected the extension, having voiced concerns around the financial viability of the service. So to avoid a hasty re-procurement, which, whether we liked it or not, would have led to a gap in service provision because we couldn't have re-procured in the time available to us, and to allow for a full assessment of the needs of the homeless population in the run-up to where we would want to recommission in 2024, we have discussed with the 2 subcontractors whether they would be willing to provide the service for the kind of remaining 2 years of the contract. Both have indicated that they can work within the current financial envelope, and of course in doing so it does then help us to maximise the continuity of service provision with service users. It would be another variation on the last 2 items of a contract extension, but because they're the subcontractors and not the lead provider, we need to do a direct direct award to them for the remaining 2-year period. But it does give us time to go back to where we were and work on a full re-procurement in 2024. So therefore, the recommendation is set out, I think it's in paragraph 2, to directly award to NCHA and Falcon Support Services.
Seems entirely reasonable. Louise?
Yeah, I'm quite happy to support this and propose the motion. I think we're already working with these 2 providers, so I think it gives us continuity of service until 2024, so we can then look at what we provide after that.
Good, so you're moving the recommendations, Louise, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. And Deborah?
I'm very happy to second the motion. I think it's really important, especially at the moment with the cost of living crisis that we're going through, and a lot of people are struggling at the moment. It's really important we have continuation of this service. So yeah, no, I'm very happy to second this motion.
Good, and I'm happy. All in favour? Thank you, Mike. It's all right, it was probably Blake telling me he can't be here because he's looking after his dying dog or something. Item referred from overview and scrutiny, none. Urgent items, none. So that's the last bit of the public bit of the thing. So now 11, I move that under section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded for the following item of business on the grounds that involves the likely disclosure exempt information as defined in paragraphs 1 and 3 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act, and that in all circumstances of the case, the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. I move. Deborah?
I'll second.
All in favour? Thank you. We now need to wait till we hear that the